Good evening, children. In this video explanation, we'll be continuing from lesson 1 only, but with a new topic, that is sexual reproduction. Though I have already sent you all these pages and I guess you have already written them, but once again, I'll be sending you these 5 pages of the notes, 6 pages rather, and you will please make them up in your notebook and then try to understand. The first thing, sexual reproduction. What do we mean by sexual reproduction? It involves the formation and fusion of haploid male and female gametes. Most of higher animals reproduced by sexual method. Now when we say haploid is not a new term for you. It means half the chromosome number, that is N, that is formed from the parent cell. That is, if a diploid cell is 2N, then 50% N is from one of the parent, that is the father, and the other 50% would be from the mother. So in a way of sexual reproduction, recombination of genes takes place, forming a diploid zygote. Then further this zygote changes by a process called embryogenesis, we'll write later, and this changes into an embryo. This change is by the division of mitosis, and finally the embryo changes into a new organism. So this looks like a basic summarized chart of what is sexual reproduction, and as I said, in most of the higher animals this is the method that is very commonly seen. Let us see next as the basic features or characteristics of sexual reproduction. First is, it's a biparental reproduction. What we mean to say is that it involves two parents. Second, fusion of haploid gametes can be seen. That is, fusion of male and female gametes can be seen by the respective parents. Third, meiosis takes place during gamete formation. That is, during the development of offspring from the zygote, the gametes that are formed will take place by meiosis, the reduction division. And finally, the recombination of genes that leads to variation. And this, that is why we say, children, offsprings are genetically different from the parents and from each other also because of recombination of genes. So these are the basic 4 characteristics of the sexual reproduction. To move further, phases of life cycle. Every individual's life is being divided into 4 phases. First, juvenile or vegetative phase. Second, the reproductive phase. Third, phases of senescence and aging. And fourth, the end of life, that is death. So, what is juvenile stage or phase of life? The stage from birth till sexual maturity into any individual's life is called as the vegetative phase. Then, reproductive phase, this is the stage where the individual is capable of producing offsprings. If we talk about the difference between the juvenile and reproductive phase, we can say this is an early phase, whereas this is the middle phase of life. Then, juvenile is a period of rapid growth, whereas growth in reproductive is either slow or absent. Then, shape and size may change when it is juvenile, whereas here the body is already into a permanent shape and size, right? Here the individuals are not sexually active, whereas in this one they are sexually active. So these are 3 to 4 differences. I'll show you at page number 15 in your textbook. If you do not have, children, I have already sent you the link. This is the difference shown between juvenile phase and the reproductive phase. Please write it down and try to go through their simple English statements, and I hope you will be able to pick up the meaning. To move further, third phase of life, it is called as the deterioration stage or the deterioration of vital or important capacities. It's to be studied under 2 heads, that is senescence and aging. Senescence is the terminal stage of aging just before the death. that is everyone's death, the stage just before that is called as senescence. Whereas aging is a phenomenal stage, or it's a phenomenon of acquiring characteristics of old age, and it's a progressive breakdown of organism. And yes, certainly it is irreversible. Then finally, the end of life, that is the death. So the first page is basically very simple. I introduced you the definition of sexual reproduction, the small layout or a flowchart of what happens really in the sexual reproduction, basic features of sexual reproduction, phases of life, and a little about their explanation. Then, coming to the next part, we have discussion under three things separately. Sexual reproduction only will be talking first in simple organisms. When we say simple organisms, the examples generally include algae, fungi, and protozoans. Groups like these, sexual reproduction takes place under unfavorable conditions by the method of spore formation. And the spores, they form thick resistant coverings around them to overcome the unfavorable environment. Coming to sexual reproduction in plants, in this, flowering plants, they are divided into two classes or two categories, we can say, monocarpic and polycarpic plants. They are typically, mono means one, poly means many. These plants produce flowers only once in their lifetime, and that is why they are called as monocarpic. If you remember, children, in the structure of flower, there's a term called as carpel. That is the female part, the pistil or the carpel of the flower, the whorl of the plant, right, gynoecium. That herein, if the flowers are produced only once in their lifetime and they produce fruits and the plant dies, it is called as monocarpic. Sounds really strange, but yes, very commonly we see them in wheat, rice, marigold, then radish, carrot, bamboo, Neela kuranji, etc. Neela kuranji, it's a plant, or we say the kuranji shrub of family. Especially, it's the reason why Nilgiri hills in India, they are called so. We'll talk about it just now after this. Coming to polycarpic plants, these are those perennial plants. I remember I have already taught you annuals, biennials and perennials. That is, these are those plants which complete their life cycle in more than 2 years. And these flower every year. Examples, apple, orange, mango, grapevine, jackfruit and some more, etc. Then, in your syllabus, 2 headings have been given as unusual flowering in some plants, and that's very interesting to study also. First is a bamboo plant. Very commonly you've heard of these. The scientific name is called as Bambusa tulda. The flowers, they are seen only once in their lifetime. That is, the plant, just now I told you, is of the monocarpic category. It flowers only once. And this is seen especially after 50 to 100 years. What a long time gap. And then produces many fruits and dies. So it's a very special thing about this plant. Bamboo is only flowering once in its lifetime and then it dies away after fruit setting. Another one, Neela kuranji. As I just now told you here, Neela kuranji, scientifically it's called as Tobilanthus kunthiana. Please learn this name and write the correct spelling. This again shows unusual flowering because here flowers are seen once in every 12 years. Slightly lesser the time. In bamboo it was between 50 to 100, but in Neela kuranji it is after every 12 years. And this Neela kuranji, it transforms the hilly areas in the states of Kerala, Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. That is what we call as Nilgiri hills. The vast blue stretches, and last time it was seen in the year 2018. So you can guess it. The next time you will see it flowering will be after 12 years, that is in 2030. Coming to sexual reproduction. So before we move to sexual reproduction in animals, the unusual flowering, children, only 2 examples for your syllabus in Neela kuranji, Tobilanthus kunthiana and Bambusa tulda. Please learn the number of years and how it flowers. Coming to sexual reproduction in animals. In this, there are sequential steps what have been explained and very simple to understand. There are three phase of events. Pre means before. That is, pre-fertilization means the stage of preparations or the other changes in the plants we are talking about animals. In the animal's body before fertilization. Then comes the fertilization or syngamy. I'll just tell you, syn means united and gamy means marriage. This is an American English word. So these words mean united in marriage. And finally post, that means after fertilization events. So pre-fertilization will be divided into two headings to understand gametogenesis. Again, two words, gamete and genesis. So gamete means the sex cells and genesis means the birth. So formation of gametes called gametogenesis. Then the gamete transfer from the male to female. Then syngamy, that is fertilization, we'll talk about in two parts, that is external and internal fertilization. There are plus and minus in both the types and we'll study examples. Then the zygote formation. What is a zygote? Just now I told you this 2N, the diploid zygote, how it is formed from the haploid gametes. So this is to be formed, and from the zygote, here you saw embryo is to be formed. So this change from zygote to embryo is called as embryogenesis. Alright, so we move further. I think the points are clear to you. Coming next to animals, obviously continuing. In placental mammals, the females show two types of cyclic changes. Now, wherever I introduced a typical technical term, I'll tell you the meaning. First is placental, right? Placenta, you have studied the word in your class 10th textbook. I'll just remind you. It is, first we'll talk about what it is. It's a flattened circular organ in the uterus of eutherian mammals to nourish and maintain the fetus through the umbilical cord. I'll just show you placenta. I have a class 10th textbook over here. If you can see this diagram, look at this placenta. This is the structure that provides not only nourishment but also brings oxygen and takes back the waste and the carbon dioxide from the embryo, right? So those animals, we're talking of placenta. Back to our notes here. Placenta, as I just now showed you, is the structure that is found in the uterus of eutherian mammals. Now, what is this meaning of eutheria? So here, mammals, they have two categorizations, eutheria and metatheria. Mammals, those who belong to eutheria, they are comprising of placenta. Whereas metatheria, this includes those mammals which comprises of marsupials that give birth to the underdeveloped young that lives in a pouch. Very simple example will be kangaroo, koala, wombats, etc. Right? So metatherians basically are the pouched mammals which carry the young ones till they are strong enough to look after themselves. Whereas eutheria includes those mammals which nourish the young ones through the placenta and exchange of gases is maintained. Now back to the placental mammals. We are talking of placental mammals. The females show two types of cyclic changes. Menstrual cycle, again you've studied in class 10th, and oestrus cycle. Menstrual cycle is typically seen in the female. I hope you remember this sign, a circle and a cross, which means a female. So the females of this primate mammals like monkeys, apes, humans, etc., they show menstrual cycle. Now, what are primates and non-primates? Primates are those mammals with superior complicated forebrains, excellent sight, arboreal existence, that is they live on trees, and a prehensile or grasping tail. Monkey, ape, etc. would be a perfect example. So all the primates, basically the females, they show the menstrual cycle. But here the oestrus cycle is in the non-primate mammals. Now what are non-primates? This includes those mammals which are with the small brain, cow, etc. Right? Then even pig would be there as an example. Coming further to the second difference, here the menstrual cycle shows as a menstrual phase where the endometrium or the uterine lining is shed. This oestrus cycle, it consists of a heat cycle or what you call as oestrus cycle. In a cow's body, it runs for 12 to 24 hours and then it is followed by an anoestrus or a passive period. This period, there is no blood loss like the previous, right? Herein, blood loss occurs. What sheds? It is the endometrium, the other name for the uterine lining. But here there is no blood loss. Then what happens to the endometrium? If it is not shed, obviously it is reabsorbed. Then, no irresistible sex urge. Whereas here the animals, especially the females, there's an irresistible sex urge developed in female's body. Finally, the female does not permit sex during the menstrual phase, but here the female permits sex only during the oestrus or the heat period. So please children, remember the two cycles in the placental mammals. This is an important question, right? For differences between menstrual cycle and the oestrus cycle. Coming further to the sexuality in organisms. Now herein, sexuality in organisms, because broadly we'll be talking about both animals as well as plants, we'll have to talk about certain meanings. In animals, you have already heard about bisexual or hermaphrodite. It means those animals which have both male and female sex organ in the same individual. Examples, earthworm, sponges, leech, tapeworm, etc. Unisexual, on the other hand, these are those organisms in which one individual is either a male or a female. Both the sex organs are not formed in the same body. Example, humans, the perfect example, birds, lizards, frogs, etc. Further, in the bisexual category, if we talk about animals, herein, suppose there is a bisexual animal, both these reproductive organs are present. But there is a difference in development or maturation timing. So in some, the male matures first, then we talk about protandrous animals. Whereas in some others, the females mature first, then we talk about protogynous. Again, I'll tell you, androus and gynous. Androecium, you remember the male whorl of a flower. So it's derived from that. The male develops first in protandrous, and gynoecium, that has been abbreviated as the whorl from flower into protogynous animals in the category of protogynous category. Coming further, in plants, again, just like the animals here also we have bisexual or hermaphrodite. Example, petunia, mango, lily and China rose. And just like the animals also unisexual, here plants are also unisexual, or what we call as dioecious. That means male and female plants would be separate. One plant will be either a male or a female. Cannabis, the cucurbita and the date palm would be perfect examples. Then further to talk about homothallic and monoecious. These are terms used for bisexual condition in lower plants. For example, algae and fungi. Sometimes in bryophytes also we talk about homothallic and or terms like monoecious, which is just the other word for bisexual. Similarly, heterothallic and dioecious. This is the word used for unisexual condition. Example like Markantia. I just like to show you the diagrams here. Certain things from your textbook. This is page number 17. If you see, this is a bisexual animal, that is earthworm, a hermaphrodite animal. Then this is a cockroach, which is here the male reproductive organs. Then this is female. That means when the animal is different, obviously it is unisexual. Earthworm was bisexual, but cockroach is unisexual because there will be either a male or a female. Coming next to monoecious plant. Here there are, one plant shown as Cara. You can see that. The oogonium or the female sex organ and the antheridium. That means both are present on the same plant and thus it is monoecious. Similarly, another example, dioecious. For example, Markantia, this thallus shows either a female or a male structure. So obviously this becomes a dioecious. Then this is a bisexual plant or bisexual plant of, let's say, a sweet potato. You can see the anthers and the stigma. Obviously the flower becomes bisexual. Moving further, certain more terms in the, yes, this we have already done, eutheria and metatheria. Now another term called sexual dimorphism. In some animals, male and females, they show different appearance and are said to exhibit sexual dimorphism. For example, in humans only, this is seen, either a person will show the characteristics of a male or a female, and this is said to be as sexually they are dimorphic. Examples will be all higher organisms. Males and females look separate. Then events in sexual reproduction. Just like the previous, we are continuing with this part only. Sexual reproduction events: pre-fertilization, fertilization and post-fertilization. Here in children, there are certain definitions you should learn and also know the correct meaning. First, gametogenesis. As I told you, gamete and genesis, they are the key words. So formation of gametes is called as gametogenesis, and that means both male as well as female, and obviously all gametes are haploid, that is N, right? Further, gametes can be studied under two headings: homogametes or isogametes and heterogametes. Homogametes means both the gametes, that is male and female, you cannot differentiate. The two gametes are so similar in appearance that they cannot be distinguished as male and female. Example, certain algae. But the other side, when we say hetero itself means different. Gametes are of two morphologically different types. When it is male, we call them anthrozoid or a sperm, that is male gamete, and when a female gamete is there, we call egg or ovum. Majority of sexually producing organisms, they form heterogametes. Another term, definition of spermatogenesis. Again, genesis means the birth, and in this case, the formation of sperms, the male gamete. So in animals, formation of gametes or sperms is called as spermatogenesis. Just the opposite, obviously, oogenesis. So sperms and ova, as there are two sexual gametes in two different reproductive parts therein. So oogenesis means in animals, formation of ovum or egg is called as oogenesis. Embryogenesis. Just now we have seen that an embryo will form from the zygote. So the development of or formation of an embryo from a diploid zygote by mitosis, right? This will be formed by mitosis, and this phenomenon is called as embryogenesis. Organogenesis. Formation of different organs in an individual's body or an organism is called organogenesis. I hope you've understood, children. Then moving